we're at the Scottish Football Museum, which is within Hampden Park in Glasgow. This is the third Hampden Park to exist, and it's been here since the year 1903. The museum was established in 1994, and it moved here in 2001, and we've been here ever since. This is the only place to see the real Scottish Cup, which is the oldest national football trophy in the world. We also have loads of priceless artefacts here from the wonderful, varied and rich history of Scottish football. This is a recreation of arguably Scotland's greatest ever goal and the winner of the goal of the tournament in the 1978 World Cup in Argentina. This, of course, is none other than Archie Gemmel's wonder goal, where he beats about half of the Dutch team to slink through and make it 3-1 to, as the commentator put it, put Scotland in dreamland. Unfortunately, the reality wasn't quite the same. Scotland needed to beat the Netherlands by 3 clear goals in order to qualify, having lost to Peru and drawn with Iran. But we could still qualify if we scored the 3 clear goals. As it was, minutes later, in true glorious failure Scotland style, Johnny Rep scored and we ended up winning 3-2, but ultimately for nothing. We came home in disgrace.
This is one of the saddest moments in Scottish history. He explained to me earlier on, and I'm going to get him to explain now why it's so sad.
So, 1950, qualification for the World Cup is done by the home internationals. So, FIFA have said that the top 2 teams will get to go to the World Cup in Brazil and for the chance to compete for the final at the Maracanã. Fantastic. Scotland announced that they're only going to travel if they finish top, because of the prohibitive costs of going over to Brazil at the time, which is fair enough. As it was, Scotland lost their final game against England, ended up coming second, so they still qualified, but the SFA said, no, we're not going. The English FA and English players and Scottish players were desperate to go, and desperate to have them in the case of the English. They begged and begged and begged, but the answer was no, you're not going, so we stayed at home. In this day and age, that's unfathomable.
It's unbelievable.
It's unfathomable, but
it does get worse though.
It does, because it makes you wonder what they were playing at when they actually got to a World Cup. So, fast forward 4 years later to 1954, eventually we're put into a proper tournament qualifying group. We qualify and we're going to go to Switzerland. Great, no problems there. It's much closer to home. We think that Switzerland might be a bit of a cold country because they have mountains, they have cheese, they have chocolate, they have, effectively all the right ingredients for the sound of music. But hearing that, the SFA decide that they're going to take the warm weather kit. Switzerland's quite warm in the summer, to the point of almost 30 degrees, so Fred Martin did complain that when God Save the Queen was playing before one of the games, he almost passed out due to heat exhaustion. But even before travelling, things were a shambles. So we were allowed to take a total of 20 players to go to the tournament, and we only took 13. This was so as some of the SFA executives' wives could come to travel with them. Again, you want to have as many players as you possibly can, and now you're giving yourself less of an advantage. And after the first game, which is a narrow defeat to France, I believe, then manager Andy Beattie resigns in disgust at the way things have gone. And it's just as well the SFA committee are there, because they're picking the team for the next game against Uruguay in Basel, which we lose heavily. I don't even want to go into the scoreline because it's so bad. However, it was basically a case of what can go wrong will go wrong, and it was the fact that nobody had been to a World Cup. They hadn't done the research from the English or any other teams who had gone to ask them, what does it involve, what do you do, what do you need, And basically, we were sent home to think again. We did qualify for Sweden in 1958. We did slightly better. We actually scored a goal at that tournament.
Oh, that's a bonus.
Yeah, but unfortunately, it was more of the same glorious failure. So not to be in 1958 either.
It is a tradition, though, isn't it?
Very much so, and it continues throughout the decades, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. Even the recent Euro 2020 campaign can be described as glorious failure. So,
Should we go and have a look at something else?
yes, absolutely.
Let's go look at the cups because they're
Yes,
impressive.
fantastic.
We've come to a point in the museum which is actually right at the beginning, because this is where you show off of what you've done. And this is one cup, but I will film in a moment and show you the wealth of cups around this area, and then you're going to go, Scotland, actually, they're not bad for winning stuff.
Yeah, well, for example, behind us here is the Scottish Cup, which is the oldest national football trophy in the world, as certified by the Guinness Book of Records. It was made in 1874 for a price of about £56, which is over £4,000 in today's money. And the first winners of it were Queen's Park. Queen's Park won the first 3 tournaments, followed by Vale of Leven, who then won another 3 in a row, which was enough for them to make a beautiful loving cup, which is just over in that area behind us here. Now, as I mentioned, the Scottish Cup is the oldest trophy in the world, but the FA Cup in England is the older competition. So whose fault is it that we have the oldest trophy? The answer is Aston Villa. In 1895, Villa won the cup, decided that they would like to display it to the good people of Birmingham, as their right to do. Yeah, of course you do. You've got one of the most famous trophies, if not the most famous football trophy in the world on your doorstep. So they put it in a shop window overnight, and surprise, surprise, it gets stolen. Never seen again. Never seen again. Now, it's likely that the original trophy was melted down and turned into silver coins, because let's face it, if you wander around with a trophy, then people are probably going to know you've stolen it.
Yes,
so,
of course.
So as it was, the trophy was never seen again. That's the most likely explanation for what happened to it, but obviously the FA in England were very embarrassed by it. So the following year, in 1896, they commissioned an exact replica, which can now be found at the National Football Museum in Manchester. They used that trophy until 1911, when it was given to the outgoing president of the FA as a retirement gift. Very nice thing to do.
Nice.
You know, can't imagine it happening nowadays. Here you go.
You're
leaving the Premier League Executive Board. Have the Premier League trophy.
Didn't Mourinho take all the trophies home?
No comment.
No comment.
To quote Mourinho, I prefer not to speak. If I speak, I'm in big trouble. But in any case, that meant that they made the current FA Cup trophy, which has been used since 1911, and we have kept this. So this is a working trophy. It still gets used on Cup Final Day. It gets brought out, it's polished to make sure it looks great for the cameras. The winners will lift it with their ribbons adorning it. Once they take it back into the changing rooms, they're allowed one more quick photo. We then take it off them, give them a replica to keep for a year, which Rangers have currently got in their trophy room, and we then give it a quick wipe, put it back here, waiting for service next year.
It's pretty beautiful.
It's a fantastic trophy. I know that I'm biased, massively so,
Massively
but for
so.
me, it's the most wonderful trophy in the world. It's got so much history, and like I say, there's only one oldest trophy in the world, and we're determined to keep that title for as long as we possibly can.
Nice.